Hello, welcome back to another episode of Digital by AttentionMedia. Today on the podcast, something slightly different. So we are talking to one of the co-founders of True Potential Labs, which is a startup high-performance tea e-commerce brand. Now, they found a problem in the market where they needed a natural alternative to coffee and energy drinks and all the synthetic options that are out there today. And the reason that I wanted to get them on the show is because they are a startup brand who is in the position where they are looking to grow their brand, grow their business. They are trying to crunch the numbers, find a marketing agency, and really, find the launch pad for their brand. So I wanted to have a conversation with one of the co-founders, Tomik, and really break down what the journey has been like. Because for so many people out there who have a product, they're thinking about launching an e-commerce brand, it's a really tricky period to navigate, right? Fun journey, but there's lots of things that you can take away from this episode to help you learn from the process that Tomik and Johnny have gone through at True Potential Labs. So super excited to have this conversation. Let's get straight on into it. All right, Tomik from True Potential Labs, mate, thank you very much for joining us on Digital.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony, mate. Pleasure. Excited to be here, and it's going to be a great chat, I'm sure.
Mate, I'm very much looking forward to it, and appreciate you taking the time to have a chat to us, because just to set the scene for everybody listening and watching, a little bit of context here. So you and I have known each other since we joined the same mastermind this year, you would probably say, a mastermind group, which has been a fantastic journey in and of itself. But obviously we've come to know each other through that. We're both working on our individual businesses, and the fact that you made a fantastic candidate for the podcast. It's something a little bit different to what we would normally do, but I wanted to talk to Tomik today because he is literally somebody who is in the position right now that is our target audience when it comes to us as a digital marketing agency. And Tomik and his business partner Johnny are at the point where they are launching their business. They've launched their product. They're going through that startup journey, and I really wanted to try and talk to Tomik because a lot of people are in that space, right? Aren't they, mate? They've got a business idea. They're launching. They're trying to grow, and I think this conversation with you is going to resonate with a lot of people. So that's basically the context for the show. But mate, for everybody listening, can you please just give us a bit of an introduction and tell us all about True Potential Labs?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks so much for having me on the call. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people are going through this journey, so I'm happy to share all I can in terms of the lessons. A little bit about us here at True Potential Labs. So how I guess this whole crazy journey started, myself and my business partner, we met in a high performance, corporate role where we were BDMs, right? Long hours, a lot of cold calling, a lot of hustling. You're trying to get more done. You hit your sales targets, it gets increased. They expect more from you. 3 coffees per day, energy drinks, whatever, you name it, anything that we could get our hands on to give us energy, to give us that focus, to give us that little bit of an edge so we could get more done. That's what we're doing. But, ultimately, if you go too hard out, if you don't look after your body, if you're, eating crap, you're drinking stuff that's not ideal for you, short-term and long-term, you're going to have health issues, and you're ultimately going to crash. And going through that process, we both sort of realized, we've got a lot of potential, we've got a lot of talent. There's got to be more to this, grind, right? And, having friends that had experienced, autoimmune diseases, family that had their health impacted through preventable, issues, we sort of looked at, okay, what's something that we're passionate about? It's peak performance, the mindset stuff, going, hard out, unlocking our best, really. And we looked at, the market, and we sort of realized, okay, we can't have 3 to 4 coffees a day. We can't have energy drinks and all these synthetic stuff that give you a bit of a hit, but then you ultimately crash, because over the long term, if you look at the statistics, it's only going to end badly, only going to end negatively. So we literally did research. We looked at, what's happening in the market, and came across Nootropics. We liked the idea of it because it sort of reminded us of that movie, Limitless, right? Which was pretty cool. And we thought, how can we actually duplicate that? And then looking into Nootropics, we realized, there was a market more aggressively in the US, but not so much in the Australian space. It hadn't really kicked off yet. And next thing you know, we were in contact with manufacturers. We ordered ingredients and literally got in the lab right? A little bit like Breaking Bad style, and started formulating our own formulas and trying it. And, long story short, we're now in a position where our company, True Potential Labs, has been born. It's a natural product that takes, 13 ingredients. Our foundation is matcha green tea, and we combine 12 other adaptogens and nootropics to really create this refreshing, natural plant-based drink in powder form that you literally just add water, shake, and off you go. That is all natural, no sugars. That's really focused on three things: helping you get more focused throughout the day, more alertness, and more clean energy without that crash and the side effects, jitters. You won't get the sick feeling or the anxiousness. So you can get more done throughout the day. Unlock your potential, which is our slogan, and having that confidence that at the end of the day, you're drinking something that's not going to impact you negatively, because all the ingredients have many benefits, short term and long term. So that's a little bit about us here at True Potential Labs. We both, myself and my business partner Johnny, we're always really fascinated with being our best, going at 10x level, and obviously doing good things along the way. So that's a little bit about us and how this whole thing started, really.
Yeah, man, I love that. That's fantastic, and I think a lot of people can relate, especially myself, to the the 3 to 4 plus coffees per day, and the really trying to perform at your peak, right? Trying to get the best out of yourself in life, in business, family, etc., and so forth, right? So, for those that aren't too aware, like that keyword in nootropics, mate. Now, it's becoming a more popular. I'm seeing it, being used a lot more as well. Can you just give us a bit of a snapshot around what nootropics is, and maybe obviously there's health benefits to it because they're all natural ingredients. Run us through some of the nootropics that are in your particular product.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, look, if you jump onto the internet and type in nootropics, they're effectively like smart drugs, right, if you will, that fire up the brain cognition side of things, helping with enhancement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a distinction here. You have natural nootropics and you've got synthetic nootropics.
Okay.
So one thing that we're really focused on is making sure our product is natural, right? It comes from Mother Nature, because ultimately, like, synthetic products, although you might get some greater results to a degree, you're pushing limits that I believe shouldn't be pushed, which might give you some great initial, benefits in terms of that, mind focus alertness. But ultimately, when you're pushing it at such high levels, it's only going to come down much faster.
Yeah.
Our focus was very much using natural nootropics and adaptogens. So a distinction there is, think about, let's say you've had a hard day at work, you've gone hard out, your energy level, your fuel tanks are sort of on the empty side of things. Adaptogens, what they do is restore your levels to that baseline where it should be at a normal level. Then nootropics, they're designed to take it up a notch, right? So to give you that sort of that edge. Now, again, you've got synthetic nootropics, but you've got also natural. Our product, High Performance Tea, is all natural, and overall there's 13 ingredients. So we've got things like Panax ginseng, Siberian ginseng, lion's mane, which is mushroom, matcha green tea, which is high in antioxidants. We've got L-theanine, which when combined with matcha green tea as well, and the natural caffeine that occurs, allows you to get that mood enhancement, but also counteracts the negatives that you would get from caffeine, the crash, the negative feelings, the anxiousness.
Yeah.
Important to understand that it's about your formula as well, right? When you apply these things together at the right dosages is when you'll get that greater results and the benefits coming through. So that's the key distinction there on a simple level. So
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. There's a lot of things coming out also. But really, I guess our point of difference is very much that we worked over a year and a half period and tested many different formulas and ingredients and combined the best that we thought would put obviously health first without any side effects. And it's all about focus, alertness, and energy without that crash and making sure it's natural. So hope that helps as a simple distinction. But I think with anything, you can get really scientific with the studies.
Yep.
effectively, these are all ingredients that have been used around the world by different cultures,
Mm,
for hundreds and thousands of years.
mm.
We're really tapping into that and making it easy for everyone by putting it into a sachet that you can just rip open, add water, and off you go.
Yep.
You've got the benefit of knowing that it's all natural, right?
Mm.
Way to go, especially during this time. I think people are realizing more and more the importance of health and looking after yourself. So we want to stay away from synthetic stuff, excessive things, excessive caffeinated drinks, high sugar drinks, because they're not good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we are becoming more health conscious as a society, as a population, and I think that at the end of the day, if there is a natural substance or substances that you can be taking over synthetic ones, then for me personally, obviously, and for you yourself, it's basically the only way to go, right? Mate, we could spend the entire podcast just talking about that particular topic, but and maybe we do that another day. But what I'd really like to dive into now is obviously you and Johnny, you were colleagues. You've found there's been a problem. You've developed a solution for that problem, and you've decided to go into business together. Can you just touch lightly on the process of how you went about building your business model, right? So you sort of developed your product, and then what was your thinking in your headspace in terms of how you were going to sell the product, going to take it to market, online, offline, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of our business model, we looked at, what's the best way we can have maximum impact, create leverage, and create growth over the long term. And I believe, success leaves behind clues. So rather than trying to reinvent the whole wheel, find companies in a business aspect that have done what you want to do and emulate that where possible. So for us, it was a clear choice that we wanted to be a, e-commerce brand, direct to consumer, because then we could reach consumers all around the world, right, over the long term. So that was the first thing. How do we have maximum impact? How do we get leverage? How do we get a business that can scale? And direct to consumer e-commerce model was the best way to go forth. In terms of our initial thought process was, okay, let's use Kickstarter as a platform to, do a pre-launch, create all this buzz around, our brand, what we are all about, get people keen, interested, sign up. So then once we do launch, we've got people there that are ready to buy. And, the Kickstarter platform, for those that don't know, if you do a successful campaign, the platform in itself attracts traffic. So you're able to easily, if done well, generate further sales. So that was our initial thought process. Because we were a startup, we obviously had limited cash resources, and we looked at a lot of companies that had successfully done pre-sales, generated revenue, and then delivered the product to their customers around the world. Which, by the way, we've learned, things sound great in theory, but where it all matters is execution. So myself and Johnny, our background is very much talking to people, right? Selling products, solution oriented, business to business. So we looked at, engaging a marketing agency. And because we were so locked in on this idea of doing a pre-sale model, Kickstarter, we engaged in an agency that wanted to do that, specialized in that space. Now, I'm not sure if I'm jumping the gun here, and if that's, answered your question there. We knew we wanted to obviously be an e-com brand, but we thought the best way to obviously have a successful launch, get off to a fast start, was going through that Kickstarter phase. But where we faced some challenges was actually the execution side of things. And, this is where I think a lot of people will understand. And obviously this is the reason why you guys are doing really well in this space, is that there's a lot of marketing agencies out there that promise all these things, but unfortunately not all of them deliver on those promises. And that's where some of those challenges come in. So that's where we face some of the challenges. And now we've pivoted from that. So that was a really interesting learning curve for us, if that gives some insight there to the listener.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, this is the whole reason for having this conversation as well, is because, many people do find themselves in this position, especially in today's day and age where e-commerce is such a, it's a booming industry. It's continuing to boom. COVID has pushed so many more people into e-commerce at a much more rapid rate than what would potentially have happened across 2020. And I think that it's an important conversation to have because You are obviously able to provide some insights into the things that you've learnt so far in your business. And one thing that I would say to anybody who is looking to launch an e-commerce business is that, yes, as you've mentioned, execution is extremely important, but also just, breaking down the numbers, because at the end of the day, so much of business is just mathematics, right? It's making the numbers work. And I think from a digital point of view, digital marketing point of view, an e-commerce point of view, and an agency point of view, so much of it does revolve around the numbers, right? And the success of what you're going to be able to get out at the other end, how successful the business is going to be, how much revenue, all that sort of stuff revolves around the numbers. So for yourselves, great strategy, I think, at the initial point to head down that Kickstarter path, build some hype, build some revenue, get some some real brand awareness. At this point now, mate, what's the game plan looking like for you moving into 2021? Where are you sitting at the moment?
So the game plan moving forward is we've scrapped the Kickstarter model. Because I mean, going through that process, we realized, okay, you know what, this product isn't actually 100% fit for the Kickstarter model, which we sort of knew it could be a possibility, but we thought we'll take the risk anyway. But that's part of business. You got to take the risk. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Right. Moving forward, the game plan is we are currently building out a holistic, if you will, 360 marketing plan blueprint that will take into consideration offline activities, online activities, face-to-face strategies. Once we finish mapping that out and we've got that concrete plan of exactly like you said, what's our end goal? Where do we want to be? What do the numbers look like? And what's the best way we can achieve that through, the resources that we have to try and keep that as cost effective possible? That's when we will be utilizing different people in different spaces. Like, for example, you guys, I know, obviously you deal with a lot of clients like us, but you specialize with the digital side of things, Facebook ads, in Instagram ads, generating ROI. Once we map out the plan and are super crystal clear on what we're doing, why we're doing it, when we're going to do it, how we're going to execute it, that's when we're going to bring in key people who have the solid track record and can prove that to handle those side of things. Because I'm a firm believer in there's a book, I don't know if you've read it, but it's called The One Thing. It's really get crystal clear on the one thing that you could do that if you did, it would make everything else easier, and certain things not necessary. And it's looking at what are my skill sets, what are Johnny's skill sets, how we can move the needle to have that successful fast start and break even and go profitable, and who else do we need that can execute everything else. But it's the idea of less is more. So moving forward, that's the game plan, right? Map everything out crystal clear.
Yep.
One step 100, then know who's going to execute it, the timelines, deadlines, and how it's going to be done, and then bring in those people where we need to. Where we can do it ourselves, we will, to obviously keep it as lean as possible. We are still a startup, but effectively, we've already switched from Kickstarter campaign to e-commerce. Our e-commerce site is currently being revamped, and we've initially generated sales through there, which has been great. But we also realized in our space, doing the offline strategy is also beneficial, because before people get to know you online at a high level, they need to obviously hear about you, see about you. So we went to stores, we did our pop-up stands, sales, sample tasting in a matter of only a couple of days, and we're able to generate revenue real quickly, which was awesome, and get feedback from real people. Then we can actually funnel that revenue into the digital side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, mate. Love that. So for anybody who's listening at home, they've got an idea or they've got a product, they're ready to launch. You guys, can we ask what platform you're using? Like, have you built the e-commerce side of things on Shopify? Like, how have you gone about setting all that up?
Yeah, so we're going to be on Shopify. We looked at a couple of different platforms, but I think everybody knows Shopify. It's one of the go-to. Seems pretty simple. We've played around with it a little bit because we had to change certain things off the back of letting the previous marketing agency go. We had to tweak some things for the pre-launch campaign. But what we're going to do is, again, just find the right people that are really good at building Shopify websites, tell them how we want it, map everything out, and get them to do it. I think a lesson there for us, for anyone that's listening as well, is, don't be afraid to make things super clear. Even if you think somebody gets it,
Yeah.
spell it out, create a vision board, do snippets, whatever, make everything super clear so they don't have to second guess anything, and they don't have to assume anything. That way you will avoid any mistakes or any errors.
Yeah.
Thing that would be that, pretend that they don't know anything and give them everything that they need to make sure that they're fully on point and transparent with what needs to be done.
Yeah, love that. Very good piece of advice. And I think, that also kind of ties into the fact, and we've had this conversation before around going back to the numbers side of things. If we're looking at digital marketing to drive sales through your e-commerce store, having the conversation around what do the numbers look like, as in what kind of ad spend are you going to need to drive growth through your e-commerce store? How do all those numbers map out? Like, we've had the conversation where the average order value, right, of your product, and anybody who's making a purchase, at different levels, it can make it very profitable or more challenging depending on what it is. In the e-commerce space these days, anything that's sort of under $100 and especially sort of under $75 as an average order value can make it very difficult at the start to get the profitability that you need long term, right? Especially when you're starting out, because as you've mentioned before, the whole reason why you've also started to look at offline marketing options as well is to build that brand awareness, right? Is to get people trying the product, word of mouth, referrals, get some buzz happening, right? Because at the beginning stages, you have to spend so much time and energy on brand, right? Bringing people into your funnel, bringing them into the business. So it's important for anybody who is listening in and is running an e-commerce store or is thinking about running an e-commerce store, that you have to be able to look at the numbers and create some projections and look at what you are going to have to spend and what you're going to have to make in order to keep the viability of the business alive. So that's a really important point that I sort of wanted to touch on for anybody who is listening, because back to your point earlier, there are a lot of agencies and marketers out there who will, put their hand up and say, yeah, sure, we can run your ads and manage your campaigns and all that sort of thing for you. But if they're not going those extra layers deep in terms of strategy and what do the numbers look like, you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. And have you kind of found that in the past?
And look, I'm glad you've raised that, because that was going to be sort of my next, lesson learned for 2020.
Yeah.
There, but one of the everything that you've said, spot on. And for those that are listening, I had this conversation with Anthony, and as he went through his process, which I think is a great process, which we're looking at for next year. So if anyone that's considering it, reach out to them, have a chat. I think one of the biggest challenges for us was because, with the Kickstarter platform, we were so zoned in on that. And in the early stages, it's very hard to tell how things are going to go. And because I guess it's our first time going down this process, it's easy to give, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but, a lot of people have great testimonials, right? But what we've learned is someone can have great testimonials of achievements and all the different things that they've done. But again, it all comes down to the execution and getting that results in live time, right? Don't rest on your laurels, credentials. And we could have asked more in-depth questions, and not that we didn't ask those questions, but it was very much, oh, well, because Kickstarter works a little bit differently as to direct e-commerce. We need to test a whole bunch of different things and see how we are going. And, as we go live, we'll be able to tell, okay, what the expectations of revenue and so forth. So I think we were, too easy on that approach, and we let them, just run things as they would rather than going more in depth, more concrete. Whereas what you've perfectly said is, before you go ahead with anything, do the numbers, project, in the future, what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario, and what do we actually think that we can achieve, what's the resources that's required, and what are the time frames, and get accountability on that and lock those things in. Because even for us, errors were made throughout the process, which meant that time frames were missed, which meant that more budget had to be used.
Yeah.
So, effectively we spent more money, got less results, which put everything into a more difficult scenario. Now, great thing is that we were able to pivot from that and, move quickly. But that's a great point of what you've raised. Do the numbers, project into the future and best case, worst case, and realistic scenarios. And I think another lesson that we've learned is if you think you're going to need X amount of cash flow or revenue to get things going, at least give yourself an extra 50% on top of that, because
Yeah.
outside of your control, like 2020, right? COVID, were impacted because of COVID. That made life more difficult, but that's okay. It's part of entrepreneurship. This is what we sign up for, so that's fine. But hindsight teaches you a lot of things, right? So, yeah, I would consider that as well. If you think you're going to need, I don't know, 50K, get 75K at least, right? Always have more.
Have some contingencies in place, hey? Yeah, 100%. Mate, absolutely love that. So as like a bit of a wrap up, for yourselves, you've found a particular product or a particular problem that you wanted to address. You've gone about the development phase of that product. You've created a solution, and you've taken that solution to market. And now for you guys, it's really about driving growth of your business, right, moving forward. So it's been cool to kind of watch you navigate that process in the short time that we've known each other. And I know that 2021 is going to be a big year ahead for you guys. And I hope that that's kind of provided some deeper insight for anybody who is listening or watching that. In terms of e-commerce, there is so much potential out there in the world. But yeah, it's really about just doing your due diligence, crunching the numbers, having a plan to work to, rather than just launching something and hoping that it sticks. And yeah, really appreciate you sharing all the insights today, mate.
Yeah, that's fine. And look, if I can say one other thing for the listeners is, everything you've just said there is spot on. Have the plan, do the numbers, map it out, have your contingencies, ask the difficult questions, right? And make sure that you understand the process before you commit. But also, if things don't go to plan, right? I think, Gary Vaynerchuk has mentioned this, and other entrepreneurs have mentioned this too. You're never going to make that perfect choice, whether it's hiring the perfect candidate, staff member, or supplier, or whoever it is. But if things don't plan and they don't meet the expectations, don't dwell on it. Just move on and make the decision to separate yourself from them. Because realistically, if we could go back, that call should have been made sooner, which would have saved us time, resources too, as one little last piece of nugget. Because people can promise you certain things, right? Right. Or an employee can be like, yeah, look, I'll improve next month. But then, it's like, that's just words, right? So always look at actions rather than words. And if you see people going back into old behavior, that, okay, they're not learning from this, it's time to move on. But yeah, hope that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. So look, before we wrap up, just give us where people can find out more about True Potential Labs and the high performance tea, which I have pre-ordered. Very excited about this myself. So yeah, give us all the details, mate. How can we find out more about True Potential Labs?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, appreciate the support there, my man. So real easy. Look, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. True Potential Labs is our handle. You can also find us on our site, www.truepotentiallabs.com. We're getting a revamp done there, but we're pretty much online and everywhere. But we're going to be also doing some of the offline stuff as well. So, look out for us in stores and shopping centers too, and your local gyms as well.
Perfect. Love that, mate. And people can still pre-order, correct?
So right now, look, the pre-order campaign was for a month period. So that's all done. It's been completed. We are getting our next batch delivered by the end of December. So if anybody jumps on and does an order, that will be delivered once the next batch is arrived, right? So we are doing deliveries all over the world, really. So obviously in Australia it's 1 to 2 business days, but yeah, you can still do it, and we'll send it off to you and give you all the information.
Love that. And we'll have all the links around this episode and in the show notes. Tomik from True Potential Labs, mate, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As we mentioned, we'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on this episode. You can do that by heading over to our Instagram at AttentionMedia Agency and letting us know what your thoughts. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to know what you'd like us to talk about in upcoming episodes. So send us your topic ideas. We are always interested. And if you'd love to know more, head over to the website attentionmedia.com.au. That's all for now. We'll see you in the next episode.